B2B is hard. Honestly, it's one of the hardest markets out there where most of the time people just try to buy a tool, buy their way out of a problem with a better tool, which is not oftentimes going to solve anything. Ask a better question. It just means it's an actionable question, meaning you know what to do with the outcome. And that just pairs very closely with your sophistication as a marketer. It's meant for people who don't fully want to be like analysts, but they want to understand exactly why something is the way that it is, how it works, and how to make sure your pages are converting, and make sure they're converting for every traffic source. So how well is your landing page converting people into customers?
In this episode, we'll explore these challenges, the role of AI, and strategies to make your marketing both sustainable and impactful. Let's get into it. Well, JJ, I'm super excited to have you join me for this episode of Coffee with Closers.
Yeah, I'm super stoked to be here. It's going to be a good time and hopefully super actionable. So everyone listening, buckle up, sit down, or focus if you're driving.
Exactly. Well, JJ, I kind of come to know about you a little bit. I've seen you've produced a ton of content on LinkedIn, and that's kind of how I've been following you for a little while. But for the audience that may not have heard of you, can you share with our audience a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah. So the quick and dirty of it is I started out was born and raised in Hawaii. So that's like kind of my claim to fame there, is being born there. I actually started out, like my first step in entrepreneurialism was like actually shooting videos, so promotional videos for mostly wineries. And I moved from the step and evolution of was promotional video, kind of production company style, into Facebook ads and running ads, into Google ads and running kind of bottom of the funnel, last click ads, and then into the data aspect of kind of reporting on everything. And basically everyone's like, you're really good at this, we should offer that as a standalone service. And the entire agency now is built around offering marketing reporting data so that you don't have to be chasing around someone on your team to be like, what's happening? Is it working or is it not working?
You're trying to, you've kind of had a bunch of evolution that happened along the way. So was that like you just saw the need in the marketplace and you're trying to solve for that need? Is that kind of how the business ventures kind of got started?
Yeah, exactly. Like it pretty much turned into running ads is really easy to sell, I think. Mm-hmm. So like if you're an entrepreneur or like if you're an agency and you're selling ads, the basically the value is, hey, we'll run ads and spend your money. You pay us money to run these ads and we'll make you more money, right? But then everybody's kind of like, how does that work? Like, is it really working? Like, are we really making more money or was it already going up? And then everyone questions the data behind it. Like, is the data actually helping us or is it hurting us? And so that was the evolution, is starting from the ad, running into the data problem of nobody really understanding what the data means, from as simple of like last click attribution into the more complexities of kind of bigger complex problems there.
We're living at a time where just the sheer volume of data that's available to us is just enormous, right? Like everywhere you look, right? Whether you're doing just social post on any platform, that provides its own data. If you're doing, like you said, ads on any ad platforms, that provides data. Your website tracks data. Your sales team is or the activities and everything is being tracked in your CRM that has data. Your e-commerce platform has data. I mean, the data points are from everywhere, but that's alone is a big undertaking. So how do you crystallize and simplify for a business in the early days of like, what should you focus on? Just pause and not get overwhelmed? How do you get somebody to just kind of say, okay, here's the baseline metrics that you need to start to be tracking as a business, and what should you be looking for?
Yeah, it's going to be, imagine with me, if you're listening, is like a bow tie where you kind of have this front end and this back end information. Mm-hmm. And what you want to do is you want to start at both ends and work your way to the middle. So what I mean by that is that on the front end, you have page views. The least revenue driving thing in the world, page views. Mm-hmm. On the back end is you have like lifetime value of a customer. So like they've had multiple interactions with you, they've done multiple things, and then you have lifetime value. And so I would say suggest starting with is, if you're selling something that is a product or a service, of knowing what your 30, 60, 90, 180 day lifetime value is, and knowing your profitability of whatever you're selling. margins. If you're an e-commerce store, it's like your contribution margin. So like how much revenue are you actually making after the sale percentage, after everything else. If you're a service agency, it's how much is it costing you to fulfill that with people. And so you start at the bottom, right? Very, very kind of nuanced and granular. And then you look at the top and you say, okay, how many people saw what I'm selling? How many people engaged with that? How many people actually bought that thing? And then you can look at the fall off percentages of each of those. And so you want to work your way to the middle of starting on both ends, because otherwise it gets really overwhelming, really complex. And just start there. And you want to be good enough that you just understand why that number even exists and what to do if it's not what you think it's supposed to be. And if you do that, you have something actionable in front of you, and it's a lot less numbers than you would ever expect.
It's one thing when a company's been established and there's a lot of activities, their brand is known, there's some marketing efforts was already in place. That's one sort of a customer base. The other one is somebody who's just brand new and haven't had any sort of historical information collected. So how do you advise those sort of two different spectrum of companies?
Yeah, I'd say most people don't know what's happening. Like even if like, it's remarkable the number of people that come to us, like they're like, we have no concept of how like our marketing's actually working. And so what we do is we start from the ground up, right? We've worked with like 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure companies, even upwards of that, of saying, okay, like how are we trying to acquire people? And how are we tracking that? And it sounds really simple when you say it out loud, but it's remarkable of how many people don't have a story or reporting system to look at and to know like, hey, this is beeping at me, I need to go fix something, as opposed to just like running dollars for dollars sake into either ads or SEO or something else.
So are there some specific KPIs that you would be looking at? Obviously, you mentioned about the page views all the way down to what did it cost us to service this customer? What was the lifetime value of that customer? But are there some specific metrics that you should be measuring in each of those? And if so, can you give us some examples?
Yeah, so like as far as metrics go, like you can always get really fancy, right? Like I'd say like that's the easy thing. That's the easy answer for me to give is like this fancy like contribution margin divided by LTV gives you this like number metric ratio thing. But the problem with those complicated metrics is that you don't know what to do. If it's like, okay, it went from 3% to 7%, like shoot, now what? Like, so you want to have it as granular as possible without being overwhelming. I really like to say is like the on-page conversion rate and the landing page conversion rate is a place to start. So how well is your landing page converting people into customers? Or into leads if you're a lead generation. Like we're an agency, we generate leads. And so we have a dashboard, and you can go view that dashboard if you would like to. It's visionlabs.com/demo. And like that's our actual agency data. And so what you're looking at is like you're saying, okay, how many people are starting their journey on which pages? And where are they getting to? Are they getting to view leads? Are they getting to view become a lead? Are they becoming sales? Are they viewing e-commerce metrics? And you want to have that story so that you know what to do. And so as far as KPIs go, I would say like the conversion rate on page, the conversion rate by landing page, and the number of people who kind of view your offer, which sounds really dumb to say out loud, but that honestly is where you're going to start seeing the biggest benefits.
And what about like channels, right? Like obviously when you say where they view the offer, I'm assuming is that the channel whether you're doing ads or they're organically finding your content?
Yeah, so like it's actually what we do is we layer in this thing. So now imagine with me, you have this little funnel in front of your face. Is you've got number of sessions to your site, number of people who saw your offer, and number of people who opted into your lead magnet. Okay, so a super simple funnel. And you then can break that down by traffic source. So you could say, hey, how's that funnel looking for Facebook? How's that funnel looking for Google Ads? How's that funnel looking for organic? And now you can kind of layer on different levels of kind of questions around that without being like overwhelmed by the sheer volume of data being thrown at you. Because if you look at like HubSpot, it will tell you the last thing they did, and it will tell you page views usually. But it's very bad at like kind of telling you the journey through your site and what they saw, what they didn't see, etc. On that front. And so you really have to have a story behind it.
So what's possible right now? What I'm also noticing, being on this side, just as a user trying to get a sense of who just came into my booked calendar meeting and how on earth they found us. And a lot of times it just shows us direct traffic, and I don't even have any insight on how on earth they actually found our website in the first place. So with all this privacy regulations and people just deleting their cookies and not having the visibility on what they have done on your site, what is actually possible today, even with all the regulations? What's actually possible to track today?
Yeah, so like honestly, so I'd say there's kind of two different segments of things. There's like direct to consumer, so that's like e-commerce things, and then on the other side there's like B2B. And I think you have to look at like what is your sales cycle and like really ask like what does that look like, because like we're a B2B company, and I'd say like 85% of our traffic is attributed. And like we're just good at it. We have a good strategy for how we want to track that using a simple tool like Google Analytics. And so I'd say majority of the time when people come to us with a question around like, hey, booked calls and things like that, is that like they don't even know how that direct none or whatever else is showing up there. Like they don't even know. And like that also is the problem with like a lot of these kind of book call forms things. If they don't integrate well to knowing where they came from, they oftentimes will really do a really simple method where if you went one level deeper, you could build a better system around it. And so that's like what's possible is like a lot of things. The places that people are going to get hurt by privacy, in my personal opinion, are like the affiliates and anyone who relies on that kind of like third-party affiliate tracking, because that's where things are about to get real hectic with the loss of third-party cookies. But people will adapt, people will figure it out.
Yeah. So you're saying even with all these privacy concerns in iOS 14 and whatever about, right? So even today we're able to get much better granular data, even though HubSpot just reports it as direct traffic. Somebody booked a meeting and you don't have any other historical information you can see on that contact record. So you're saying there's still ways to do it, but it's not going to be in HubSpot, or is it just, is it going to have to be like somehow merging that data with Google Analytics and somehow bringing it to a dashboard and show like, oh, all these conversions happened. That was not just direct traffic. They were introduced to our website through some other referral source or some paid channel.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's like the problem is like, how does HubSpot get that value? Right? Like that's the question, is like, how does that even show up there? I believe it shows up there if it's only in the URL. Okay. So if there is a UTM in the URL, and so we're getting pretty technical here, but like if there's like other ways of doing it. So someone, for example, lands on your homepage and they click around and then they go to 5 different pages and then fill out a form. Like by default, HubSpot will say direct. And so like what the best kind of solution to that is that you have to look at multiple ways of data and look at your Google Analytics and look at your HubSpot and look at your ads traffic, and all of it together is going to tell a story. No one source of truth is going to become like the best, for lack of like better terms. And that's what a lot of platforms try. Like that's what like the Triple Whales and the HubSpots, not the HubSpots, the Wicked Reports, the High Roses all try to do. And they work well if it works well with your tech stack. So that's kind of what that looks like.
So let's talk about the tech stack scenario, right? Because the part of the problem we all have is obviously if you're using social ads, you're running all these ads on different and disconnected tools. You have your marketing automation technology. Sometimes it's connected to your CRM, but sometimes it's not. Then you have another problem. Then you have probably your accounting software, but then you have your analytics for Google. Google Analytics, that just sits on top of your website, that tracks your website traffic. So you have all these disconnected tools. Like what's kind of your go-to recommendation for helping them to bring all this data into one place, so that you can at least start to kind of merge this information together?
Yeah, so like I'd say like there's different levels of this. And like level 1 is Google Tag Manager, which is a tag management system, and Google Analytics. And that is level 1 where you can start and you can get a lot of things done a lot better than most people think just using those 2 tools. All right. Then you kind of have level 2, which I like refer to as where you can kind of look at your HubSpot. Maybe you're injecting extra information into HubSpot. So now you're taking your tag manager and your GA and you're kind of injecting that into this form, which now is in your CRM. And you have this kind of like new source of truth. Okay. Then you have another level up, and this is where the tech stack shifts, and you start using something that's called a CDP, which stands for like customer data pipeline profile whatever, it doesn't really matter. They're called
Mm-hmm.
CDPs.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where you're unifying data between at every step of the journey. So
Mm-hmm.
if the user identified, it kind of pulls in all this data from these places. The
Mm-hmm.
only problem with that, segment is a very common tool that is used with that. But the very problem with that is it becomes really expensive really fast. And so most companies, unless you're like a B2B company and you have an app and you have SaaS and you have a website and you have all these things, would probably just benefit from having a very solid tag manager and analytics, like browser-based analytics set up. And
Mm-hmm.
once you start getting to larger size, you evaluate, is the cost of the tech worth it? Or do we invest in someone who's good to manage these tools? Because honestly, like most of the time people just try to buy their way out of a problem with a better tool, which
Mm-hmm.
is not oftentimes going to solve anything.
Like you said, like a lot of times the problem is the software, but not always without having a strategy behind why that software, how are you going to leverage the software to solve that problem.
Yeah, exactly.
So what about, when do you see the need for, obviously you talked about CDP being one of them, when do you see the need to bring in the accounting side of the information? Because how else can you get the lifetime value and what the average customer has, bought from us and how long they stuck around with us? When does that actually become part of that equation?
Yeah, so like that's where you start like building out and asking better questions. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I say is that like marketers ask a lot of dumb questions for a lot,
Mm-hmm.
like, and that's like part of the trait. I'm a marketer, like I ask
Mm-hmm.
dumb questions. It's okay, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But like you have to ask better questions. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you have a question that you cannot answer, right? You have to think to yourself, what action would I take if I knew the answer to this question?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing with like lifetime value, right? It's this like sexy idea and topic. And like, let's just say, for example, your lifetime value is like your 90-day lifetime value is $412.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like now what? Like, oh, actually, never mind. It's 550.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so did that change in your mind? Like anything? And
Mm-hmm.
most people don't know what to do with that information. And so like, I would say like start asking better questions that you
Mm-hmm.
know what to do with the outcome. And like I say, like you asked the question of like when do you start pulling in these like back end data sources? Is
Mm-hmm.
like when you have the question that needs to be answered.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like that is the core of it. Is if you have a question that can be answered and there's an action to take, then you should invest in pulling that information in. Because
Mm-hmm.
we've seen it time and time again where you like build something for a client and then they're like, cool, I don't even know what to do with this information. Like
Mm-hmm.
that happens a lot. And so we try to guide through that the strategy of where you're going to need these different levels of questions.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, like when we talk about lifetime value, being able to report on that, usually quick, like if you're CRM software, most of that initial purchase might be tracked in there. But if they're buying second time recurring orders, some of that may or may not be inside a CRM tool, right? So then you kind of need to go into an accounting software to go find that history and how much transaction, how much in total revenue we got from that customer, right? Like then that brings
Yeah,
level
then
of
it's like
complexity.
cohort. Yeah, it's like
Mm-hmm.
cohort analysis of like in January, how many people did we start? And it's currently April, so how much revenue did they bring in? And so
Mm-hmm.
those types of questions are really good to have, like in your kind of back pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And we work with every client to kind of get towards this kind of holy grail of like knowing the outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, it can really overwhelm a lot of people and not know what to do with that.
When you say ask better questions, can you give us some examples of what are some questions you've seen? Like, wow, that's a tough question, or what type of questions would you categorize as, okay, that's a smarter, better question.
Yeah, it just depends on where you are in your journey.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give like an example. It's like if someone asks a question of like, say you're like they say like, hey, what's the like checkout conversion rate of people in the Shopify cart?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Seems like a valid question, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like it is so expensive to rebuild the Shopify cart. Like it is
Mm-hmm.
so expensive because it's one of the parts you can't touch. So like
Mm-hmm.
my question, regardless of whether it's 2% or 30%,
Mm-hmm.
almost is inactionable. Like I can't do anything with the answer regardless of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that oftentimes happens, like, for example, say you have the question of like, are people using the footer navigation?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a question. Okay, so like how do we find that answer is like we go down and check like our clicks to the footer.
Mm-hmm.
So what do I do with that? And that's where like the marketer comes into play. Because one
Mm-hmm.
marketer might say, oh, wow, no one's using the navigation. Let's get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Other people might say, oh, wow, everyone's using the navigation. Let's add a better button that says like book a call.
Mm-hmm.
It's just straight in the navigation. Like, does it do that? And so really it does come down to who's asking the question and how
Mm-hmm.
can you activate that. And so like, that's really like, if you're listening to this and you're listening like, okay, what level am I in this organization?
Mm-hmm.
And that level is going to determine what actions you can take or what actions you can bring to like your supervisor or boss or something like that to then activate that information. And so like at the end of the day, it comes down to ask a better question. And better doesn't mean like it's a dumb question to begin with. It just means it's an actionable question, meaning you know what to do with the outcome. And that just pairs very closely with your sophistication as a marketer.
Mm-hmm. Understood. And obviously, you know, some of the posts that I've saw you post on LinkedIn, you talked about it's one thing just to visualize the data or just bring some data onto a dashboard. Is another thing to have actionable recommendations on top of that dashboard that tells them what to do with that data. So give our audience a little bit of examples of what do you normally see people do and what's kind of your recommendation for those people.
Yeah, so like the biggest thing that we see is like where the pages suck.
Mm-hmm.
Where you have like sales pages or lead pages or anything else like that just do not work well. And
Mm-hmm.
so like what you can do is you can like really start there and say, okay, our conversion, like 95% of people should be on this page after 10 seconds. Like that's the intention. 80% of people should stick around for 20 seconds and scroll 20% on the page. 40% of people should click on the form and 35% of people should fill out the form. Now you have a benchmark to shoot against, right? And if you don't hit that benchmark, well, now you have a thing to go fix, right? And so that's honestly the quickest, lowest hanging fruit is make sure your pages are converting. And make sure they're converting for every traffic source. And then from there, it is, again, you can layer on more questions. And those reports should have benchmarks or a standard of what's our goal for those things.
Understood. So that's what was my follow-up question. So those numbers that you've kind of given, are there any sort of a historical benchmark the organization should have, or are there any industry benchmarks that we can find to kind of compare ourselves to?
Yeah, like normally like we come in with and say like, hey, like we have some general ideas of like, okay, for example, like you should have like a lead magnet, for example, in the kind of B2C space should have like a 40% opt-in, give or take. And if it's not 40%, you should fix it. But like everyone's different. Like we've had clients that have like 65% opt-ins. We've had clients that couldn't give it above 30. And so at the end of the day, like we kind of like start with a benchmark and then say, okay, your standard is here. You've done everything that you possibly can to fix this. Like, here we go. Same thing for like sales pages. Like usually if you like 95% of people should be there after 10 seconds. Like, unless you have a really mismatch of traffic and landing page, otherwise you should have like a pretty good idea of like the benchmarks working alongside of the benchmarks working alongside of your reporting.
Understood. So obviously, you know, you probably have seen a lot of these sort of performance metrics from having worked with so many different clients in different industries. How much of, you know, would you say conversion and everything is attributed to just the aesthetics and design, design itself versus just better call to action, just better positioning of a call to action or a key value proposition on a page?
I think like my hot take of this is that I think it comes down to the minimalist amount of design you can possibly have and the best copy you can have with it. And if you can nail those two things, I think it's a winner. Like that's my gut thing is like, how can you remove more information from this page, make it simpler? And like, that's usually the winner. Like our best lead magnet is like, if you go to like visionlabs.com/cheat sheet, like that is our highest converting one and is the dumbest page in the world. Like it like literally is a headline and like a fragment of a sentence. And like, that's it. And it has three fields. It has first name, email, and how large is your company.
Hmm.
Oh, and I think I'm at 4. I don't know, but like that's all it is. Like that's a headline, and that's the simplest you can possibly do to convey what the outcome is of what you're doing is honestly the winner 95% of the time.
Have you seen adding video to a landing page improving conversion in any way at all?
Honestly, it can go either way. I've seen it
Mm-hmm.
go up, I've seen it go down. It's one of those things that you really should like test. If you don't have enough traffic, you can do kind of a time-based test where you leave no video for 2 weeks and then do video for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of go back and forth. And so like it really is one of those things where you just start with having good data and good questions, and then you can really iterate fast.
And from your experience in having worked with both B2B and B2C clients, which of the social ads platform have you seen to work really well for B2B customers today?
Yeah, I think B2B is hard. Honestly, it's one of the hardest markets out there where you have this like kind of really long customer cycle, and you have product and marketing, and you're not sure if your product is fitting the market. And so I'd say like on the B2B side, it really just depends on if like the cost of your ticket. Like, is it like a $10,000 B2B thing? Is it a $100 B2B thing? I think LinkedIn's a great spot, but it's also an echo chamber. I think Google Ads is also a great spot, but it's really expensive. And so you kind of have to play into what your goal is of like, how long are you looking at a horizon? Do you invest in content? Do you invest in ads? And the goal, like in general, the benefit of working with us is you can have that answer pretty quickly.
And what about channel, in general? Because obviously, if you look at most B2B customer data, organic is almost always outperforming all the other channels, even though they're afraid of pulling back on ad spend on paid, or cutting back on some sort of a social ad strategy. Which there's a need and a need for doing awareness initiatives. So social is always important, and sometimes retargeting and all of those are contributing to the overall performance across the board. But from your perspective, what have you seen kind of the key driving channels on the B2B side? Has it always been organic from your observations as well?
Like, I think it just depends on the product, right? Like I've seen some companies just do huge on Twitter. I've seen some companies that like do large on LinkedIn ads. I've seen some companies do cold outreach. For us, like we're a B2B company, like we sell like agency, we do training as well. Like our biggest acquisition channel is YouTube. Like that's not the normal answer, but like that's the case for us. And we don't even have a big YouTube channel. Like we have a very small YouTube channel, but it's the most profitable thing out there. And so I'd say it really depends. And like that's where you really have to have a good measurement strategy of how are these tools playing together? How do you know what the outcome is supposed to be? And how do you put all of that into one big happy family so you have reporting that makes sense?
So obviously you mentioned about kind of a cheat sheet as an offer that you use, a lead magnet. You mentioned about you leveraging your YouTube channel. What kind of have been your strategy in terms of attracting customers? And then especially even on like YouTube, what sort of approach have you used?
Yeah, well, we have the most unsexy offer out there. Like we don't run ads, we don't build landing pages, we don't promise you $1 million tomorrow. Like what we do is we give you visibility so that you can act. Like that's what we do. So it's very unsexy. So for us, like what our marketing strategy, marketing plan is we drive leads to like a newsletter, and then we have like a PS, whenever you're ready, we're here to help. And that seems to work remarkably well. It's been a long growth cycle. I mean, it's taken us like a couple of years to get kind of like a solid pipeline of leads and a solid pipeline of like booked calls. But in general, it really does. It has paid off for us. And so I'd say to anybody who's listening, if you're like an agency or a consultant, or if you own a business or run a business even, is just focus on like what you're trying to accomplish with a hypothesis, and then keep going from there. Like we had the idea of like, hey, YouTube was going to work out. Like I think the goal was to do 1 or 2 videos a week for like 10 weeks, I think was our initial goal. And we did that. And then we're like, wow, this is working. So we kept going. And now we just do 1 video a week, but it really does kind of pay off if you have a hypothesis and then you measure against that.
What's typically kind of the topics that you normally cover in your YouTube video strategy?
Yeah, so we try to talk about like the combination of where tactic and strategy meet. It's
Hmm.
really easy to get super nerdy. It's really easy to get really high level and hoity-toity about like this big strategy you've got and everything else. So we
Hmm.
try to be in the middle of like where tactic meets strategy, and how you can use data to better activate your marketing budgets.
Hmm.
And so most of the time it's people that came in with a really complicated problem, and then they're like, can you help us with this? I'm like, yeah, you've got more problems than just this though. Like you've got
Hmm.
some bigger problems. um, and so we end up helping them get through that, and then they partner with us, and like most of our clients are with us for a very long time.
Hmm. So obviously so that's kind of where your inspiration for topics come from, like your customer challenges and then how you solved it and then using that as a video topic.
Yeah.
You recently created another lead magnet as well, right? Review My Dashboard as a strategy as well. Do you want to explain a little bit about what that tool does and then how that people might be able to access it?
Yeah, definitely. So like reviewmydashboard.com is the
Hmm.
URL. Okay. So this is, I'll give you like, if you're listening, go to reviewmydashboard.com. That's where you can find it. So now I'll give you like a little bit of like backstory of this. Is like we like the idea to do this, basically with like AI and everything else. And I was like, I hate AI. Like I
Hmm.
don't hate AI, but I hate how much like I have a big
Overused.
rant about it.
Hmm.
Um, but I was like, hey, let's just try something out and like make a little mini app, and like it'll be a lead magnet. Cool, we'll try it out. And so we
Hmm.
built this thing that is like analyzes your dashboard against like the best UX and UI principles, and dashboard design. And the feedback is like, I don't know, a 6 out of 10. Like it's not
Hmm.
amazing. Like it's not like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But it's not terrible. It's usually pretty helpful.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, if you go to reviewmydashboard.com, you can do that. Like you'll get a follow-up email from me, and then you'll have the option of joining a newsletter that is written by yours truly. And so, yeah, that's kind of what it is. It's like a little foray into the world of AI. So far, I will tell you, it is not paid off. It's
Hmm.
not that old. Like it's probably like a week old as of recording this. And so it's been really interesting to see people who have used it, who have not used it. And I think that's kind of like the general vibe about AI is it's very buzzworthy, but not
Hmm.
very like, oh my goodness, I need this in my life.
Understood. So we talked a little bit about data and dashboards and what to look for and how you kind of get started, but we didn't get to talk a little bit about your kind of your entrepreneur journey a little bit. You said that you got your day, you got started in the business world. You saw the need and you tried to solve for the need. What are some of the challenges that you faced as an entrepreneur as you got started with your business?
Yeah, like face now or face like starting out.
From your career, what are some of the challenges that you've faced overall, like as building a company?
Yeah, I think the hardest part for me in general is like two things. Is one,
Hmm.
like defining what your like end goal is,
Hmm.
and then two, defining how you want to get there.
Hmm.
And I think that's very like, I still struggle with this of like defining how do I want to get there and where is the destination.
Hmm.
um and those two things I think are the hardest parts. Now it's like around like, how do we manage like the payroll automation, like how do we manage hiring, like that. Now it's those types of problems which are
Hmm.
more different. But I think in general, that's all, those two things of where are you going and how are you trying to get there are the hardest things to answer.
Yeah, and is it usually like for you, was it like a revenue target as the destination or an exit strategy as the destination? What was kind of that?
Yeah, here's a book recommendation for everyone who loves book recommendations. Incoming
Hmm.
is The Company of One by Paul
Hmm.
Jarvis.
Hmm.
And so that book is really cool because I think it's a very interesting concept of running a company of one mentality, of being efficient, running one person shops.
Hmm.
Um, and so, like, in general, my goals have always been, I want it to be sustainable, I want it to be profitable, and I want it to be fun.
Hmm.
And if it can meet those three things, then we're winning.
Hmm.
Um, so it's not like an exit strategy. It's not like any of those type of things. It's just like, how do we be sustainable, profitable, and fun? And if we can do
Hmm.
those three things, we are going to call it a win.
Understood. And then what are some other lessons you learned in the process of building the company?
Um, it's pretty stressful when you have high ticket clients. So like, I
Hmm.
think that there's this like dichotomy between the B2B SaaS world and the B2B agency world.
Hmm.
And everybody in the agency looks at SaaS and is like, oh my goodness, it'd be so great to have a SaaS company. And everyone in
Hmm.
SaaS is like, oh my goodness, it'd be so amazing to be an agency.
Hmm.
Because at an agency, you have a higher ticket, but the cost is the people, and the people don't like scale like as much. Like you have to hire another person. You can't be like, hey, Susan, do this infinitely times. Like there's a capacity. And so I think that like that's the biggest like problem in general, is like the difference between like SaaS and agency, and kind of that dichotomy between those two.
So have you found some sort of a solution in terms of how to make your service company more efficient and how to produce more?
Yeah, that's like what we shoot on. Is we aim for like efficiency. Like that's our goal, is to be efficient, which can be hard. Like it's really hard when you run an agency because you have knowledge gaps in certain personnel, and so you have to cross-train everybody, which becomes inefficient because now you're training multiple people to the same thing. So it's like a cat and mouse game of efficiency there.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're talking about data analytics and data modeling and integrations, and different companies have different sort of sources of data. Exactly. All of those are complex problems. In terms of, you mentioned earlier, you have like a training and educational product as well. Where did that idea come from for that sort of offering?
People keep asking us. That's where that came from. So it's called The Lab. And it's like visionlab.com/lab. You can go see Learn with us on our navigation. And basically people kept asking, like, how do you do this? Like, how do you do this thing? And we're like, oh my goodness, like here, like join this thing. It's like $200 a month. And we'll share like everything. So like we have live calls, we like share what we're doing, what we're working on, how we're working on it, and also train you in what we're doing. So like you don't have to be like confused, like why does this not make any sense? Like it's meant for people who don't fully want to be like analysts, but they want to understand exactly why something is the way that it is, how it works, and how to improve.
So obviously you shared a lot of good insights, some lessons about your entrepreneurial journey. Knowing what you know today, what advice would you give the younger JJ?
What advice would I give myself? Oh my goodness. I would give myself the advice of build something to the best that you can build it, and then move on from that. So like build something to be the best, and then move on to the next thing. Don't leave something like 80% done ever. Because if you could do that, then people look at it as like, oh my goodness, you do so many things. But in reality, you just do one thing at a time, and then let that thing sit.
Understood. Well, any parting wisdom for entrepreneurs?
I'd say if you have a goal, go for it. If you don't, and you're just chasing like money, there's like easier ways to make money than being an entrepreneur. So like just figure out why you're working on something or for something, and then shoot for that goal.
Well, what a great word to kind of end our discussion. JJ, I certainly appreciate your time, and thanks for sharing your wisdom with my audience.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
If you enjoyed this video, please share it. To make sure you never miss an episode, please subscribe.